Have you ever wondered if it's possible or legal for your high school student to homeschool themselves? This is the Homeschool Sanity Show, the episode where guest Karla Marie Williams answers our questions about self-directed homeschooling. I'm Dr. Melanie Wilson, Christian psychologist turned homeschool mom and curriculum author. And this is the podcast helping you wave goodbye to worry and say hello to a happy homeschool. Karla Marie Williams has been a guest on this podcast before. I'll add the previous episodes to the show notes. She's the author of multiple books, an international speaker, and a global advocate for children and families. She is also the president of Be Bold Publishing, a publishing company that launches inspirational books, journals, and courses to impact moms around the world. I was curious about one of her recent titles, Unschool Yourself for Teens, so I invited her back to chat about it. I was newly inspired, and I know you will be too. Karla, thank you so much for coming back on the Homeschool Sanity Show to talk with us today about how our teens can unschool themselves. I cannot wait to ask you the questions that are on my mind on this topic that I hope are the same questions that my listeners have. But before we jump into that, I would love to have you give us an update on what has been happening with you since we talked last about Teens Unleashed.
Thank you so much for having me, Melanie. I'm really excited to be back. I think this is my third time.
Yes.
I think our first one was Homeschool Gone Wild, and then I was on with Teens Unleashed, and now Unschool Yourself for Teens. Wow, so much has happened since then that, a whirlwind. So I think when I wrote Teens Unleashed, it was really a sequel to Homeschool Gone Wild, because what I did not want to do when I wrote Homeschool Gone Wild, which was my very first book, and I just published the 10th book, but wow. I did not want to talk about something I hadn't experienced. And I had not graduated any teens yet. At that time when I wrote Homeschool Gone Wild, my kids were like preteens. They were 12, 13. And so when I wrote Teens Unleashed, it was fulfilling a promise that I made in the back of Homeschool Gone Wild. I would come back once I had the experience of launching my first two teens into the world doing what they love, that I would come back and write another book about it. And so here we are, several years later, and my older teens are doing what they love, and the things that they were passionate about then have expanded. And they're just, they're adulting.
Yes.
Figuring things out and in designing their own path. And it's something that they had experience with very young, because that's how we homeschooled. So since then, and now I have 4 teens at home. The older 2 have flown the nest and are living on their own and all over the place. My oldest daughter lives in another city. My oldest son is just took his experiences in aviation and joined the Navy. And so he's in his 3rd week of boot camp, which is nerve-wracking for me. Yes. But, as a pilot and an avionics professional, he has really wanted to stretch his wings and serve his country with his skills and talents. So, and so I have 4 teens at home. Yeah.
It is. It's so exciting. And I know it's hard on your mama heart, but it's still really, really exciting.
It really is. And I have 4 teens at home. They are almost 17, 16, 15, and 14. And so, wow. Then my next 3, 17, they will be 17, 17, and 16 in 2024, and all 3 of them will be graduating or launching. Wow. However you want to put it. People say, unschoolers don't graduate. Well, they launch into the world. They launch into the next step of life or the next step of whatever they're pursuing. And so, for
Yeah.
formality's sake and the way that our world looks at it, we're graduating.
Right, right.
So we'll be graduating 3 next year, and I only have
Oh,
1 left on the end. And my mama heart is both
oh,
excited and looking for the
I
pause button
know.
frantically.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah,
Oh,
that's what's happening with us. And my kids here at home are all really tunnel focused on the things that they're
okay.
passionate about. Over the
Mhm,
years, as with all of my kids, and probably the kids of all the listeners and yours, different interests and passions have waxed and waned, and some have remained consistent, throughout their childhood and young adulthood. And that has proven to be true with
mhm,
my children. I have um, one that is interested in the Marines. And so he's
mhm.
studying for the ASVAB. I have another who is interested in the police academy and will be entering the youth police academy this summer. Another who is preparing to start studying for music production technology. And then my youngest, who is a robotics, we call him
Okay.
robotics nerd, and
Yeah.
he's on the end, and he'll be pursuing engineering and things of that nature. So they're all tunnel
Oh.
focused, and I just try to keep them inspired and involved in things that will help them pursue and go deeper into those things.
Well, you are such an inspiration. You
Well,
mean you
thank
really
you.
are. And I love that you share all the little milestones along the way with your kids because I think so many homeschooling parents are still nervous about
Hmm.
that unschooling path and they need to see
Hmm.
that it works.
Right.
So I appreciate that you do that. So let's jump into this now because I know we have people's attention. They're very
Hmm.
interested. So with your book that we're discussing today, Unschool Yourself, that teens can unschool themselves, what type of student specifically do you think is ready for that?
You know, honestly, I believe that this particular book, Unschool Yourself for Teens, can work for any homeschooled teen. So I will say
Okay.
that just up front. And honestly, it could probably work for a public schools teen because it's really about
Okay.
getting to know yourself and the things that you're passionate about. It is a guided journal.
Mhm.
We did have a few questions as to why are there so many of the same pages in the book? Well, that's because it is a journal, and I
Mhm.
wanted to leave plenty of space for teenagers to write and to record their learning journey. So that's why it is a
Mhm.
journal. Um,
Mhm.
but the kind of student would be someone that is preoccupied with the things that they love. And a lot of times that's all of our kids in different ways, right? So I believe
Mhm.
that the journal can be utilized for any youth. I've had parents say, "I'm taking this. I'm going to order my child another copy because I'm using this for myself." So I went and created one that I just launched for moms or for women, but that's very similar, but it's catered toward women. Because I've had a lot of moms take the Unschool Yourself for Teen journals for themselves after ordering it. But it's for the kid that is preoccupied with the things that they're interested in, that they're passionate about. They're dreaming, they're goal setting.
Mhm.
They want to do what they want to do. And
Mhm.
you have some kids that need a little bit more direction, and they can benefit from this too. The parent will just be have a more active role. But then
Okay.
you have those other kids that want to just be left alone, and they do very well in self-study. They do very well in passionate pursuits and just diving deep into things and coming up with mastering bodies of knowledge that they would have
Mhm.
never gotten in a curriculum or a class because they can't find it.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Do
it
you
go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think that a student who has not been unschooled
Mhm.
to this point can benefit from jumping right in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, one reason why I wrote this particular book is because when I wrote Teens Unleashed and Homeschool Gone Wild, that was for the parent.
Mhm.
But I recognized that a lot of us parents, moms and dads alike, have this vision that we want for our homeschool, and we're trying to carry that vision out without really explaining in detail why and how we want to do what we want to do. And so our kids get confused, and they freeze up and they pause because they're not sure. Okay, mom's changing again, and now we're Charlotte Mason, and now we're Thomas Edison, and now we're this, that, and the other, all these labels. And even unschooling, can be a label that is thrown around a lot. And really, it's just about learning. It's just about learning, and not putting a box around learning and how it happens. That it doesn't just happen one way out of a workbook or out of a curriculum, that it happens all day, every day, and that all of that matters. Even the conversations we have in our home matter. I mean, think about college courses. Think about public school classes. What I remember the most, because I'm a talker, what I remember the most and what I learned from the most in my classes, whether it was high school or college, was the discussions. Why is it as homeschool parents, we discount the discussions that we're having in our home as just a conversation? Whereas when those discussions deal with our values and our morals and politics and anything that we feel we want to pass on and talk to our kids about, even, you're talking during a movie, you're talking during election time, you're talking during all these conversations. Those are learning moments. And those are moments that can be recorded. And those are moments that can count as learning on transcripts. And I'll be talking about that tonight. But anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Oh, that's great.
But so really any student can benefit from this. How they use it may be different. But the reason why I wrote it is because there's a section in the front of the journal that's for the parents. And then there's a section in the front of the journal that's for the teen, to understand why their parents chose this path for them, or why their parents feel that they are ready for more independent learning. And what that may look like, and how their parents want to trust them in that journey. And so what it does is it puts the kid in the power seat and helps them understand what their parents' vision is what they want to accomplish when they transition to a more independent, interest-led, or unschooling mindset. And so it's really a guide for the kid to understand what this is all about.
Right.
And how they can be, I don't want to say in control. That sounds so, that scares people to say in control. But how they can be in the driver's seat of their learning.
Sure. Okay. So if you have a student who discovers that they want to do a deep dive, like my son did, into computers and building his own computer, do you have a process that you would advise, either through your book or you would advise parents to take a student through to plan a learning path for that goal?
Yes,
okay.
We do. And two things that we do. We're kind of on a calendar year. So, for instance, I have 8 more months with these 3 before we graduate them. We will celebrate at the same time that other graduates do in May and June, but I'll be done with them January 1st of 2024. And so what we do is we make the first month of the year, we make annual goals. And those annual goals are based on what they want to accomplish, classes they want to take, things they want to dive into, things they want to discontinue. Just what they want their year to look like. And then if I say, I think that you could use a little bit more practice in writing, or remember we did research on the path that you want to take or the career that you want to pursue. These are the things that industry is requiring. How would you like to pursue that knowledge?
Okay.
So, they get to choose the resource. They get to choose how and when they learn. from that resource, and I support them and provide it for them and check in with them as an accountability partner, more as more than a dictator, so to speak. So that's the first thing that we do. We make our annual goals.
Okay.
I guess there's 3 things, and then 2, we do research on what it is that they want to accomplish.
Sure.
But the third thing that we do is we draw a map of all the ways for them to be able to accomplish that, and then I layer. It's what I call layering. You know, you've probably heard of this with body care products. They say, you know, you get better scent if you layer the lotion, the cream, and the perfume of all the same scent, right? So that's kind of how I think of when I'm trying to help my kids dive into a topic. How can I layer this? Are there projects or kits or subscriptions that I could add to the mix? Can I create a YouTube playlist? Are there books I can get from the library? Are there online classes? Are there classes in my community? Are there mentors that can help them perfect these skills? So I try to layer all of these different aspects of that particular topic, so that they get a well-rounded experience in diving deep into it. And how deep we go with those layers depends upon how far they want to go in that topic. It may just be something they just want to know about to add to a body of knowledge of something else they're doing, or it may be a career path that they are investigating. So it depends, But that's what I would tell a person to do. Make annual goals, research what those paths that your kids are interested in require, and research all the many ways that they can follow that path. We did that with my son because there were like 5 different ways that he could do that. And the journal helps with that. The journal has pages to help them work out every single direction they can come at that goal. And then they have plenty of room, like 100 pages in the back, to be able to really just record their knowledge, the resources they've used, and their learning journey. And
then could you use that as a parent to, let's say you have a student who wants to attend another school or program after their K-12 learning. Could you then, I would imagine, use that journal to support what you're saying that the child has learned, that your high school student has learned? Right. Yes. So, I just want to say that now I have only had my kids apply to a limited number of colleges. And I just had a listener to this program write me about her child's transcript. And, she had this, it was really incredible, super impressive list of all the things that her student has done over the 4 years of high school. And I told her that I never had to provide that. I mean, I think that's a wonderful thing to have a record of, Right. I mean, even for our benefit and our kids' benefit, but I never had to provide it. But if you did, I would think that journal would be an amazing support record for what has been learned.
And it can be used to create the transcript. So a lot of times you don't know, 4 years ago, this major independent study that you engaged in, you forgot about. And it's like, oh, wow, I forgot that I literally mastered underwater basket weaving. And Mom, can I have half a credit for that? If you actually did it underwater and we have pictures, let's go. Right.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I did that, because it helps the student see what they're learning. It gives the parent confidence in seeing what they've learned. And it just becomes this partnership. It's a partnership regardless without the product, but it just kind of solidifies that partnership. And it's evidence. I use a lot of pictures as evidence. And I talk about this all the time. When it comes to what my kids are learning, I take pictures of everything that they do. And one of the things that I promised all of them is that I was going to give them a picture from age 5 to 18 on literally a collage of their learning journey all the way through. And when I say learning journey, I say life, because that's exactly what unschooling is. It's more of a lifestyle than it is a learning style. But
Yes.
so yes,
That's wonderful.
it's a tool that can be used in many ways.
Okay. Well, it sounds like an incredible resource. Do you have any other resources that you would recommend that families get a hold of for guiding this process?
I will say this. For this particular resource, I have both the ebook as well as the hard copy. The hard copy, if it fills up, you can get another one. The ebook is good for families with lots of kids like you and I, and
Right.
because there's printables, and then it also can be used for groups and classrooms and things of that nature. So that's a good resource. I would suggest Homeschool Gone Wild and Teens Unleashed. Those two books would be great resources if someone feels like they just don't know enough to be able to benefit from this particular journal. Then they would need to probably backtrack and read those books. One of the things that I use that is my favorite resource in the entire universe is Evernote.
Yes.
And that is what I have used for many, many years to record the learning of my children in picture form.
Really?
I take pictures of everything that they do. I've been doing it since 2014, I think I started using it. So almost 10 years. I've been taking pictures of everything that they do. Obviously, there's some things I'm just going to miss because learning's happening all day, every day. But the things that I capture, I put a little, blurb about what they were doing, just in case it's not clear. And I send it to my Evernote app, and it's a cloud. And so anywhere in the world you sign on to Evernote, you can see. And at the end of the year, you can literally have a pictorial yearbook of everything they've learned. And you can, you have the ability to tag,
right.
Like this included math and science and reading and that kind of thing. So really good resource that I enjoy.
Now, because I'm a scrapbooker, I've done both. I do mostly for my kids' school year albums, I do print.
Okay.
But I have done digital as well. So can you export that from Evernote into a document that you could print, or it's just a digital?
Yep. You can, you can share your notebooks with other people.
Okay.
And so myself and one of my children can share a notebook where we talk back and forth. Those kinds of things. And you can send a link to a notebook if you wanted to send it. Like, for instance, some colleges have a more alternative view on seeing what your child has experienced, like creatives. So mixed media, artists, musicians, actors. A lot of times they want a portfolio, or they want pictures, or they want something like that. This is a perfect opportunity to be able to share that. Obviously, you would do some editing and decide what you want to share, but so it's a good opportunity.
Well, I love that. That is really neat. You know what, Karla? Every time I talk to you, I think, man, I wish I could just start over with my kids.
Me too.
I bet you do. Well, I'm hoping for grandkids. So, and if my kids say, well, we would love to have you homeschool them, I would say, okay. Sounds good.
Right.
Oh, man. At least to be a part of it. That would be fantastic.
Yes,
okay. So my last question for you, besides asking you more how we can get more information, is what do you say to the listener right now who is very inspired, and I know they are, but they're worried that this whole approach just isn't going to work?
Right. Well, before there was school as we know it, and even school at home, there was unschooling.
Mhm, mhm.
You know, the founding titans of our country and countries all over the world learned in this very manner. And so it's one of those things where your view of what learning looks like has to morph, and you have to understand that learning doesn't have one way of operating. And the key is training your eye to see when it's happening and what's happening when it's happening, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. And
Yes.
so, I'll give you an example. My children, the four that are still at home, for the last 3 summers have helped me grow flowers, fruits, fruit trees, vegetables. They've learned with me what works, what doesn't work, how to amend soil, how to test water, water absorption, all of these different things. And I said, you know what? 3 summers? That's more than the average class. That's more than what you would, more time than you would spend in a college course, 16 weeks, right?
Mhm.
Why wouldn't I give them credit for that? So I can look at that and say, okay, that's just a gardening. We're beautifying our yard and growing our own food. But there's something deeper to that. We've all learned and grown through this experience. Why wouldn't I give them a science credit for a horticultural science when they've been present and learned all of those lessons with me? And so I say to the parent that is afraid or just not feeling, quite that confident in this path, your kids are learning every day. And if you train your eye, you can see what's happening and you can categorically divide it into what most people consider traditional topics. They're
Right.
all around you. It's happening all the time. Even those that say, my kid would game all day, you'd be
Mhm.
surprised what they're learning. And
Mhm.
it's really important to know that learning does not look one way.
Mhm.
And learning, and even unschooling doesn't look the same way with each of my children. I have 6 kids and their paths were 6 different paths, but I had to be okay with that. And I had to be engaged with each one individually on their individual paths to be able to get them where they want to be. Um, and so it is possible. There are hundreds of thousands of people out there that are doing it and have done it successfully, have launched kids into the world that are doing what they love. A lot of people are afraid often of gaps. Who
Mm.
doesn't have gaps? I am 47 and I still have gaps. But you know what? The areas in which I needed to accomplish what I'm doing, which is what I love today, I'm on it. I have what
Mhm.
I need. And when I've needed to learn something, I go out and I learn it. And we do that as adults all the time. And our children did it when they were 5, 6, 7 years old. It's when they get into those school ages that we start getting afraid and forget how learning happens.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
just be confident in the fact that learning happens all the
Mhm.
time and that if you train your eye, you'll be fine.
Right. And I would just add to that
Mhm.
that if you have if your child in partnership with you wants to pursue a more traditional post
Mhm.
secondary education like my kids have, that colleges and universities are recognizing more and more the
Yes.
value of an unschooling education, if we want to put
Mhm.
that label on it. They absolutely are. And I mean, it's a great time to be
Mhm.
an unschooler. So I hope that that gives our listeners a little bit more confidence as well.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I agree
Yep.
wholeheartedly. They look for people that are already passionate. And when you've had 3, 4 years or longer, maybe your whole life, if you were unschooled since you were born,
Hmm.
to focus on things that you are passionate about and you've mastered skills that are really important and of interest to you, how much more are you going to be passionate when you enter a post-secondary
Hmm.
school or program? You're going to be probably one of the most motivated and inspired students in the room, and that's who they want there.
Right.
And I'm doing tonight a transcript creation workshop for unschoolers in my private group, and it is, we've had hundreds of people join the group this week just to be part of that workshop. And I'm really excited about doing it because I want to open up the eyes of people that say, I want to do this. I see the value in it, but I am scared straight about after high school. What do I do? How do I get them into college? If college is the desired route that they want to take. So
absolutely, because it doesn't have to be.
Right.
Well, Karla, I know the next burning question that my listeners have, if they haven't already connected with you, is how can I get a hold of Karla's books? How can I hear more from Karla? How can I connect with her? So please tell us.
Yes. Well, everything, all of my books and what I do in this arena and other arenas can be seen on my website at www.karla, K-A-R-L-A, mariewilliams.com. That's karlamariewilliams.com. On social media, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, I am Karla, K-A-R-L-A, the Unschooling Mama.
All right.
And formerly Karla in the Sensational Six.
Yes, I remember that.
So yes, they can contact me. They can DM me. I just love helping people. I love seeing bells go off when people finally feel confident in following what they feel in their gut is the right thing for them. So that's how they would reach me. And the 3 books that I've written 10, but the 3 that I have written that are homeschool, unschool specific are Homeschool Gone Wild, Teens Unleashed, and Unschool Yourself for Teens. But all of my books are mom specific. So.
Right. Because you have a book that is for moms to really pursue their passion as well.
Yep. And that's the one that just released April 1st. April 1st?
Okay.
Or March 1st. I can't remember. I'm always on to the next book. But it's called what is the name of it? This is crazy. A Busy Girl's Guide to Dreaming Big.
All right.
And it's a journal that is very similar to Unschool Yourself for Teens, but it's for women.
All right. Well, I will have all of those links in the show notes in case you are driving and cannot click on these or write them down. Karla, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're just getting ready to speak again. So just thank you. And thank you for your friendship over these years. It's been so much fun to connect with you online.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again. And I enjoy myself as always.
To find the links to Karla's books, website, and previous interviews, visit the show notes at homeschoolsanity.com/unschoolyourself. Have a happy homeschool week.
Thank you for joining me on the journey to homeschool sanity. I would love to continue the conversation. You can find me on social media at Homeschool Sanity. And if you haven't heard it lately, let me remind you, you're doing a great job. This has been a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.